So today I was thinking we talk about the notion of work, but in particular work security or lack thereof. You know, this is probably something that a lot of people, I can definitely say, are going through, and in differing kind of degrees. So we have either individuals who know they've lost their jobs, individuals who aren't sure whether or not they're going to lose their jobs, and other individuals who are lucky enough to still be going back to work, but now it's the process of getting back into that flow, getting back into trying to figure out how to go about working within this environment. But in talking about it, I wanted to just kind of touch on the individuals who have possibly lost their jobs and what they possibly may be going through and how we can really support them. But in addition to that, I also want to talk about the other people involved. So the people who might have been very much dependent on the breadwinner. And I'll talk about the second part maybe on another day. But today I want us to primarily talk about the notion of work security and how it may be affecting our breadwinners. So first of all, let's talk about what work security means. And that's basically, work security basically speaks to knowledge or awareness and surety to an extent that you will not only be getting a salary, but it will be a consistent salary. So being able to invest in things such as getting into a bond situation or planning for your financial future. So knowing that money will continue to come in and you can kind of save a little bit. And if you don't have that surety, that certainty, then the notion of your security within the workplace is a little bit less secure, a little bit less certain. You know, financial issues is what we are really dealing with in many spaces across, South Africa at this point in time. And I remember a while ago, I tweeted, and I kept thinking to myself, I don't know what's worse, or rather, it's more of a catch-22, where we have individuals and we're in spaces where we need to be aware of the fact that our economy is going down, and we need to ensure how we can build that. And that also does include people going back to work and actually understanding what their financial futures look like. But at the same time, we know that there are people who are hungry, who are starving, and so need to kind of jump into survival mode. So you end up asking yourself, the security of people in terms of us staying within this lockdown and being secure, or the hunger and the basic survival instincts of individuals. Which one do we pick? And that is really, really difficult and something that I think a lot of us are finding hard to manage, especially individuals who are now going through the real possibility of losing their jobs. Now, we've got to understand that when we are in a space such as this pandemic, the major thing that we go through is an anxiety which is centered on worry. And that's what anxiety really is. I'm worried about something that I am uncertain about. I don't know where this is going to come from. I don't know where the next thing's going to come from. But in addition to that, when the first batch, for instance, comes in, I then end up being worried about what am I going to do in the future, because my present, fine, is sorted out, but what is my future going to look like? And that's where a lot of the stresses end up coming for a lot of people. The fear of not knowing what the next month, 2 months, possibly for many of us the next couple of months. And so when thinking about our breadwinners, the primary thing that we need to do is give them space to be sad and to be uncertain, and in many ways give them a space to vent about the concerns. It's not always going to be easy for us to really understand what it means to be in a place of having been the one being able to provide and no longer having that strength and that capacity. And in many instances, in many households, that tends to be the fathers, the brothers, the male figure who has taken on very much of that masculine provider identity. And so losing the one thing that really did differentiate you from your counterparts, your spouse, your siblings, can really end up knocking a lot about who it is you now understand yourself to be. So for example, if I know that I am the one who would bring money into the space, into the house, into the family, And now I no longer do that. My identity is very linked to my being the provider. And when that is removed from me, I end up finding myself spinning a little bit, wondering, what do I then do? Or who am I now going to be seen as and recognized as if the very job that I was playing, the very role that I was taking part in, no longer seems to exist? So we can get then people, in many ways, I'm going to refer to it as acting out. And that is just frustrations in and around questions, the same questions that were being asked when I still had a job, now still being pointed at me. So beforehand, it would be, Dad, Wabuti, I need money for school fees, for instance. And as the provider, I am able to provide that. I know where the money is going to come from. So my answer to you will be, okay, no, I'm getting paid, next week, so I'll give it to you. Then, now in this particular circumstance, the same question is posed. Dad, Abuti, I need money for school fees. Because we like it or not, school fees are still being expected to be paid in some way or another. Because we're going to have to go back to a schooling space, and those responsibilities are still on that individual's shoulders, right? So the question is asked, I need money. The question has remained, but the answer is now a little bit different. It can no longer be, okay, I need to wait for the end of the month. Now it ends up being, I am not sure. And how do I then express that to other individuals, to the people who have always expected that answer from me, where I myself am not sure of the answer? And that can prove to be very isolating. It can prove to be very depressive and depressing. And it can also bring about a lot of frustrations, because it's hard to say no or to provide guidance and understanding to someone who might not completely understand it. But in addition to that, how do you give reassurance about something that you yourself aren't sure about? And so what we can do as the people surrounding, these individuals, what we can do as the support system, because that's who we need to become now, what we can do as a support system for the individual who has lost a certain aspect of their identity, is try and practice to be more understanding. And that is something as simple as, I know this is going on for you, but phrase the question differently. And phrasing that question, for instance, in terms of the sport, in terms of the the school fees, it would be posing the question differently. Instead of saying, this is what's expected, the fees are expected, we can change the conversation and say, hey, this is going to be coming up very soon. How do you think we can figure it out? So where you are taking the information and putting all of the responsibility on the caretaker or the initial provider, I'm now removing it from just being your sole responsibility, and now we're sharing it. It goes from you need to give me money for school fees to, how can we figure out how to pay the school fees? Communication and just the way in which you phrase things do a lot for preventing an individual from feeling very isolated and a situation being highly expectant of them. Expectations lead to anxiety. It is what it is. We're expecting a particular outcome from you, and if I don't know how I'm going to meet that expectation, I become very anxious and worried about it. And from that anxiety comes behaviors of anger, of frustration, of just pure disheartenment. Because how do I then now start framing my mind differently when the people around me are still at the same place where they were in the beginning? So these individuals are going through things that will take time to kind of help and change. But we can assist in removing, as I said, the responsibility purely from them and putting it to be a joint mission more than anything. And part and parcel of that, apart from just communicating, okay, how can we now start doing this? It just starts being a thing of, let's be proactive and assist. So we're assisting in terms of, okay, so this is something that we weren't expecting. these are your qualifications, or these are your experiences within the job space. What can we do to get you in a place where we can maybe start supplementing it ourselves, where we can start making it be taking the next step, really. We've come to a place, we started off at a place where we were rather sad, hurt, frustrated at the change, but we need to get to a place where we're moving and we're using what we have now. And what we have really are, like I said, the skills and the past experiences and how we can use those to move into the future. Granted, the possibility of getting a job right now is very slim to none because we're very much stuck. But just because we're stuck indoors and not being able to be as proactive doesn't mean our activity in preparation for the proactivity cannot take place. You know, they say that success is preparation preparation coming together with opportunity, and that's how people succeed. This is what it is. We're now in the preparation stage for all of us. When things have changed and things are no longer what they used to be, we now have to use this current opportunity to recognize what can still come. And that's what's going to get us past this place. Where it's okay to acknowledge the pain that you're in. It's okay to acknowledge the fact that it is not easy and it was very unexpected. But the unexpectedness is going to remain. The question ends up being, for how long are you going to sit in that unexpected place once you've known what it is, and learn to just move past it. Moving past it and acknowledging that things need to keep moving forward is what will get you and your family in out of a place that is debilitating and isolating from the rest of the world. It will take time, and that is okay. All we've got at the moment is time, so use it. But be proactive and be assertive in figuring out what you're going to do next.